It's Shani on Shani Speaks Now. Hey there, Faith Fam. It's your girl Shani here, and I am back with my Fill in the Blank Stories, my live interview series where I help amplify the voices of women as they share their reproductive health journeys. This month, I spoke to my dear friend Ericka Watson as she goes in depth regarding her struggles with PCOS and losing her baby girl Eva at 7 months of pregnancy. But don't worry, her story is a beautiful one that ends with a couple of rainbows. So stay around, stay tuned, and let's get into it.
So for those of you who do not know me, my name is Shani Jones, and I essentially started doing these lives called My Fill in the Blank Story. I started the first one in February, but to be honest, the idea came at the beginning, or not the beginning, came sometime last year. And it was really just to give women the opportunity to share some of their challenges with their reproductive health. Just a brief synopsis of how we got here, because I know different people are going to be watching at different times, but I actually had an experience with fibroids. I found out that I had fibroids in September of 2021 when me and my husband were trying to conceive. I had to have surgery, and prior to that, I had no idea that anything was wrong with my reproductive system and being able to conceive. So I had surgery in December of 2021, at the end of December. I did not know it, but got pregnant in March of 2022. We unfortunately lost the baby at the end of April of 2022. And then I found out I had fibroids again in September of 2022 and had surgery again in December of 2022. So with that being said, I was really feeling led to just open up the conversation and create communication and kind of create community. And that's how this whole My Fill in the Blank story came to be. And regardless of where you are on your journey, for most women, if you have a cycle, there's something that could be taking place. And some women, thank God, nothing is taking place. But I found in my sphere of women that I know that some of them have found out that there's something that's going on that they didn't really know that was happening until they started to really pay attention to their bodies. And this is how this started. So today's guest is one of my dear, dear, dear friends, Ericka Watson. And her story today is my PCOS and pregnancy loss story. So this one's going to be a little bit jam-packed because it's literally like two stories in one. Normally, I probably would just focus on PCOS or just focus on pregnancy loss. But with her story, they kind of mesh into one another. And that is why I wanted her to tell both sides of it. So I'm going to do my best as a moderator today to be able to kind of keep us in good timing because I know it's a Sunday. I know you all are cooking. You all are kind of chilling and doing different things. But I wanted to be sure that she shared as much of her story. This is also one of the first times that she's sharing her story publicly. But I will tell you one thing, and I want to give her flowers. Before any of my story even took place, me and Ericka had a conversation just because I was curious about her journey. We go to the same church, and that's where we met each other. And I knew about her pregnancy loss and the way that she handled it with just such grace, her and her husband. And she was so open to sharing her story with me. I think the first time we talked about it, we talked for hours. And I didn't know that I was going to need her because my story was about to unfold and I had no clue. And she was very much a go-to for me during my time because I could hit her up and say, this is happening and I don't understand this and pray for me about this. And she was willing to do those things. And it's just been a blessing to have her in my life as a friend. So Ericka, even though I've told you this in private and on phone calls, I want to let everyone know that you just have a special spirit. And I love that you were willing to just share your story with me before you even needed to. And I'm grateful that you're going to get an opportunity to share it with other people now because it's an important story to tell. So that is my side of Ericka. But Ericka, if you just want to introduce yourself, just tell them who you are and a little bit about you before we get into your story.
Well, first of all, thank you for this opportunity. You know, it really means a lot because, you know, I'm so passionate about this. I publicly a lot, but if anybody calls or inbox me, text me, I'm always willing to share my story and always, you know, willing to help other people. So I appreciate I'm Ericka Watson. I just turned 38, April 15th.
Hey, we are April babies.
Yes. I am married, been married for almost 13 years. And I'm an admin for a bank. Nothing exciting, but I like what I do and it pays the bills.
Amen.
So other than that, I'm a believer. I love Jesus Christ.
Amen.
active in my church. Yeah, that's about it.
Yes. And you have a daughter who's adorable.
I do have a daughter. Yes. Yes.
All right. So I've tended to start all of these from kind of the inception of our cycles. But before I get into that, I actually just want to talk about PCOS in general, because I don't think I even heard about PCOS or what it was probably until like 4 or 5 years ago. It's not something that I think it was because a friend of mine finally shared about it, but it's not something that I think is heard of as often. I think more lately you've heard about fibroids and endometriosis, especially in the last probably 3 years or so. But PCOS is still something that's not spoken of as often. And I needed to make sure I wrote it down so I could say it correctly. But PCOS actually stands for polycystic ovary syndrome. So I just want you to explain to people what that is and also how it affects your body, because I think also PCOS is framed as irregular periods, but it's so much more than that. So if you want to share a little bit about that and your experience in terms of just how it's affected you.
Yeah, so even though it is called polycystic ovarian syndrome, first off, all women do not have cysts who have this condition. Have it and not have cysts on your ovaries. It affects so much that I didn't even realize until I started researching, but it affects your mood. Women who have it are at higher risk for anxiety and depression. There are just a lot of physical things that come along with it that are very unpleasant. Of course, the irregular cycles. And if you do have regular cycles, not necessarily ovulating, there's a lot of like I said, physical things like hair growing in places you don't want it to grow.
Yeah.
You know, hair loss on your hair. You want your hair to grow on your head, but you don't necessarily have, you know, that hair growth that you want. Skin issues. I was sharing with you, Shani. Forgive me because I still cannot pronounce the condition, but like dark patches on your skin.
Yes.
Not for all PCOS. I specifically have PCOS with insulin resistance, and my body is not processing insulin properly. So I'm not diabetic, but it's similar.
Yeah.
So, you know, you see women with the dark, you know, creases in their neck, and a lot of people just think it's dirt, and it's not. It's because, you know, our bodies are not necessarily processing insulin properly, and it's just creating those dark patches. So those are a few of the things. I sent you that infographic. There's a whole list that it affects, but personally, that's the things that I experience with PCOS.
And I definitely, when I put this on YouTube, I'll definitely share the infographic because it does break a lot of different things down. And it kind of shows how PCOS just affects so many different things in your body. I mean, I think the one thing is, you know, with fibroids and endometriosis, typically it's only affecting just you during your menstrual cycles. And I think maybe just how the bloating in your stomach can take place. Those can be very painful, but I don't remember, outside of hormonal acne, because that can also take place with them, I don't remember any of those other things, you know, the hair loss, just your moods, the dark spot. So I think that's the one thing that I definitely want people to know is there's so much greater with PCOS, even though it's not spoken of as often. So let's go back to your cycle in terms of growing up. When did your cycle start, and did you see any signs of PCOS even when you were younger?
So my cycle started when I was 12, 7th grade. I didn't notice anything, you know, at the time that seemed off. But as a teenager, you know, just being around other girls and them talking about their cycles, and I wasn't experiencing my cycle like they were. Yeah. Everybody had regular cycles, like they knew my cycle's coming this date. I'm like, oh, mine just came whenever. Yeah. It would skip months at a time. Sometimes it would last for 2 weeks. I never had PMS symptoms like other girls or other women did. It would come, and I would, you know, sometimes it would be heavy and clotting, and sometimes it would be light for 2 and 3 weeks. So it was definitely, especially throughout my teenage years, it was all over the place.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I remember you mentioning when we spoke was that you weren't necessarily the same size as some of the girls, because that's something that PCOS can affect too, is your weight changes. And also that sometimes you were either bullied or made fun of because you also had some of those dark marks. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that and kind of some of those stigmas.
Yeah, I can't believe I left out the whole weight gain thing. So that's another thing. If you have PCOS with insulin resistance, it definitely can and usually does affect your ability to lose weight, and just you gain weight easily. I've probably been eating healthy and dieting since I was a teenager. I could say probably 14, 15.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me to lose weight or keep it off, no matter what I've done. And so, you know, of course, there's a stigma around that. People don't know, and people are just go to the gym, you know, just stop eating so much, or just lose weight. And it's just been this thing. And so, you know, I just remember as far back as probably 10 years old, I was always, of course, taller than all the other girls, but heavier. And I'm out here active like all the other kids. I'm not sitting around pigging out. My mom didn't give us junk food, you know, when we were younger, but I could not keep that weight off. And the weight, even when I lost it, it came back on quickly. Especially with the dark patches. We didn't know what it was. My mom didn't know what it was. You know, of course, naturally, especially on African-American skin, it's going to look like dirt. And on my neck, in the back of my neck, you know, as a preteen, and, you know, I try to scrub real hard in the shower and wash my neck with alcohol and cotton balls until it was like raw, and it still didn't know what it was. I definitely got bullied a little bit by some of the guys in, you know, middle school about it. And that was tough, just again, because we had no idea causing it.
So let's fast forward, because you didn't really know anything about PCOS until you actually got to college. So what was it that happened in college that finally allowed you to get closer to getting the diagnosis and understanding why all these things were happening in your body?
Just because my cycles were just terribly irregular, and I felt like they were getting worse. And again, I lived with 3 other women at the time, and, you know, I'm like, something is just off. Like, everybody else is just having these normal cycles. And I had one that it lasted probably like almost 6 weeks.
Are you kidding? I can't even listen. Okay, keep going. The thought of that makes my stomach curl, just to go through that for so long.
It was just going on, and it wasn't anything heavy. It wasn't painful. I'm like, this is not normal. It can't bleed for 6 weeks. I went to the gynecologist and told them what was going on. You know, they kind of asked, you know, are you having pain? I'm like, no, I'm not. And it was just, they blew me off, basically. It was just like, we can put birth control. You know, they had no explanation for it. Of course, they said, well, you need to lose weight. And I'm like, okay. And that was really it. But that's what prompted me to go and ask some more questions. And I don't think they even did any kind of exam on me at the time. Not in college. That wasn't until after. When I finally got some answers. But even then, that's what prompted me to even look into it.
So in college was the first time that you actually went to an OB to find out that anything was happening. So your cycle started at 12, so you probably didn't see an OB till you were like, what, 18, 19? Okay, got you. And then even then, technically you didn't have a PCOS diagnosis. You just knew that something was off.
Yes.
And I think it's crazy because I remember when I spoke to my sister in February about her fibroid story, she was told the same thing in terms of, well, just lose weight. And I do find that is, one, frustrating, but I hate that that's the main thing that most doctors go to when it has to do with something with your cycle. Yes, we know that weight loss or weight gain can affect your cycle, but the fact that that's the first go-to and then you're not doing an exam, if someone comes in or doing any testing, if someone comes in and tells you they've had their cycle for around 6 weeks, the fact that there's no other testing done is crazy to me. After that visit, did you go back at all, or was it just kind of, hey, they're saying birth control, they're saying this, let me just keep it moving?
Well, they just told me basically, you know, if it doesn't stop after, I guess, another couple weeks, you know, you can come back. And they did tell me about birth control. They would put me on birth control to regulate it. So eventually, of course, it did stop. But I don't think I had another one that lasted that long, but they were still just irregular for the next couple of years.
Yeah. So let's jump again, because we gonna get through the story. So 2012 was when you actually got your PCOS diagnosis.
Yes.
And at this time, you were already married, right? Okay, so tell me about just that time in your life. When did you get married? What year?
2010.
Okay. So 2010, you get married. And initially, were you and your husband even, I mean, y'all were young when you got married, so I'm sure children weren't the thing. So what kind of caused your diagnosis, or that trip that kind of caused the diagnosis at that time?
Well, when we first got married, we did plan to wait for years and years to have children. But I don't really know what happened. We both just kind of, a couple years into it, we're like, just started having this really strong desire for kids. So we're like, hey, let's try.
Yeah.
Especially because even though I didn't know I had PCOS, I'm like, because I'm not having regular cycles, like this could take long.
Yeah.
So we decided to dive in. So we were trying for probably maybe a year, and of course when you go to the doctor and tell them that, they say try for 6 months to a year, and then if you naturally come back and we'll do some more tests.
Right.
So that's we have been trying for probably about a year, and nothing was happening at all. I started doing the home tracking, ovulation tracking.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing was happening at all. So I'm like, yeah, something's going on. So I go back to the doctor. Of course, went to a different one at that point, and told them everything that was going on. They finally did a transvaginal ultrasound.
Gotcha.
And immediately the lady's like, oh, she's like, you have a string of pearls, basically, is what she told me. A bunch of little tiny cysts all on my ovaries.
Wow.
And based on that and all of your symptoms, she's like, you definitely have PCOS. And even then, she said that to me, and I still didn't know what that was. And so I'm like, well, what is polycystic ovarian syndrome? So all I'm thinking is, okay, it's just cysts on your ovaries. And there was no real guidance on it. I'm like, well, what's next? What does that mean for us, with our fertility journey? And she's like, well, basically, she's trying to put me on birth control. And I said, well, if I'm trying to get pregnant, birth control probably isn't going to work. Yeah.
Correct.
So there was nothing. There was no help. There was no guidance on it. I left there feeling extremely discouraged and frustrated and all of it.
Yeah. So when did you finally get help? Because I believe that it wasn't until around 2015, so almost 3 years later, that you saw an endocrinologist, right? So was that the next time that you actually were able to get help, or was there any visits in between 2012 and 2015 in regards to getting anything else, getting any other answer?
I went to my regular annual exams, but there was still no real direction as far as the PCOS. I don't remember how I came across the endocrinologist or to go there, but I don't know if someone told me that or if I looked at, just found it out by looking it up.
Yeah.
But I decided to go to an endocrinologist. And I did learn a little bit more, and I think that's where I was starting to understand about the insulin resistance. And the information I got there, they basically suggested, the doctor just said, like, you need to treat your body as if you're a diabetic so that you don't get. And so the suggestion was like, I think she gave me some ideas on like supplements and stuff, but more so they were pushing metformin. And metformin is a medication that they give to diabetics. And it was like newly being tried out with PCOS. So I was like, well, I don't feel comfortable with this. Because I don't want to be, you guys' lab rat right now.
Yeah.
But to come up this, I didn't want to be on medication at the time, really, anyway. I just didn't feel comfortable with it. So I did take some of their suggestions as far as like dieting and stuff, just trying to watch like my sugar and carb intake, because I'm like, well, that's what diabetics do. So, I mean, that's it. I mean, that's really what I got from the endocrinologist.
And the metformin that they that they prescribed to you, do you know if that was even safe for you to use as you were trying to get pregnant?
Yes.
Okay.
I actually ended up trying it.
Okay.
But this after I went to a reproductive endocrinologist. So I just started off with the regular endocrinologist, but then I ended up going to an RE. And they were telling me that they use that metformin successfully for a lot of women who had PCOS, were trying to conceive. And so, yes, it was supposed to be a safe thing. And they used it hand in hand with some of the fertility drugs.
Got you. So, and that's, you had seen both the endocrinologist and the RE within that same year. So you were really just trying to dig and get some answers. So from what I remember, after that, you all tried for roughly about 3 years and then ended up just moving to Florida and just saying, hey, like, it's just going to be what it is. So
after the reproductive endocrinologist visit, that is when we started the fertility treatment.
Got you. Okay.
So we were just like trying to go aggressively with it. Like, let's see what we can do. I did try the metformin. It made me deathly ill. It works for some women, so I'm not against it. I would never tell them to try it because it works for some. But it made me so sick. It was, my cycles never regulated on it. I never saw any sort of improvement in my condition. I was on that for a few months, and then we tried Clomid.
Yes, I remember you mentioning that.
So that I would ovulate. They said that, if I took that and then Clomid, it would help me to ovulate. So I did 3 back-to-back rounds of that.
Which you mentioned to me is not safe and should not have been done in the first place.
They did not give my body a break at all. I didn't know at the time that wasn't safe. There was no like, do it, start at the low dose, and then if it doesn't work, let's wait a month. They were just overstimulating my ovaries, and I could have had like sex tablets.
That's wild to me. And I think that's one of the things, and not to say that there aren't doctors who are great, that do care, that do help. I mean, if it wasn't for the RE I went to, I wouldn't have known that I had fibroids because my OB didn't catch it. However, there is sometimes the stigma, especially when you start fertility treatments, because of the cost of things, the IUIs, the IVF, the Clomid, that they do push things because there's money involved. There's cost involved in that can make it lucrative. And I remember you mentioning to me that at the time, looking back, that you weren't healthy enough to even be going through this process in terms of the weight you were at that time. Talk a little bit about that and kind of realizing that in retrospect.
Yeah, during that time, like, I remember telling Iran, we had no business trying to have a baby. I wasn't healthy enough.
Yeah.
At that point, I had probably gotten up to like 230, 240 pounds.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that women cannot have babies and healthy pregnancies at that weight, but for me, that was not a weight my body should have been at. And it was in conjunction with just eating whatever. I think at that point, I was just so frustrated and discouraged and whatever. I was not focusing on my health. It was just have a baby. We gotta have, we have to have a baby. So I was stressed. I just wasn't taking care of myself. And the fact that those doctors didn't care about that, of course, you don't want to go in, they just push, lose weight. But someone should have said, we can help you get pregnant with this medication. However, you probably should make sure you're eating, healthier and exercising, and that you get to this weight, because if I did get pregnant at that weight, I don't know what the pregnancy would have been like. And that was something I've always been like very passionate about. And I would tell Iran this all the time. Like, I don't want to just have a baby. I want to have a healthy pregnancy.
Yeah.
I want to have a child, because you can pass stuff on to your children.
Yep.
You're not healthy. And so, yeah, I don't think I had any business trying to get pregnant at the time.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. And I think if anything, it just lets people know, if you end up being in a process where you're having to see a RE, you're having to get these things, just to make sure you find someone that really cares about you and also will listen to your concerns. Because it almost sounds like you need not only an RE, but at that time, they should have been really being like, look, let's get you to like a dietitian or a nutritionist. Let's find out why this is happening.
Yeah.
Especially if they know you have PCOS and they know that weight gain is something that you may also suffer from. So you just want to make sure, for those that are listening and watching, that you find someone who really cares about you and is not just about the dollar signs and just not about just you getting pregnant. Because like she mentioned, you can pass on certain things to your child, and also it can really, really affect the quality of your pregnancy as well.
Right.
So now we moved to Florida, right? 2017?
2017. So we after that, okay, actually, we do have to back up a little bit. So
Okay.
Rounds of Clomid, and they didn't work. We sat down with the doctor, and he's like, sorry, he was surprised that it didn't work, but he just said, basically, you're not going to be able to have children unless you do IUI or IVF. He said, those are your So of course, you know, we left that appointment just like,
right.
Nope. And even though, yes, I'm a believer and I know God can do all things, it was discouraging.
Yeah.
And I had human moments, and I was very sad. I was just, you know, like, no woman who wants to have children wants to hear that the only way that it could possibly happen is with, you know, some aggressive fertility treatments like that. We also know that stuff is not cheap.
Correct.
At all. And we just were not in a financial position to be spending tens of thousands of dollars, not even with the guarantee that we would have children. So we just decided, you know, we talked about it, we prayed about it, and we both decided, like, this does not feel right. And I want to pause there because I want to say that I am not anti IUI or IVF for women. And I personally know women who've done it. You have to do what works for you, and you have to do what is to do for your family. What's best. It just wasn't right for us. And there were plenty of times where we prayed about it, and the Lord said, I'm going to do this for you. And I distinctly remember a time just being very depressed. I was very sad, very depressed, just, again, feeling very hopeless. And, you know, I was just praying about it. And I remember God told me, and I had it written down in my notes in my phone. He said, I don't need your help. I just need faith. And that's all I need to hear.
Listen.
You know, and he didn't tell me I'm going to do it next week or anything, but like, that's all I know, that he didn't need my help with that.
Hold on real quick, Eric. I need you to run that back, because that was a word. And you just having that type of relationship with the Lord is crucial when you are going through this process. So run back one more time. What thus says the Lord to you, sis?
I need your help. Need your faith.
That's so good. That's so good.
Comforting as it was still like, because I'm a person, if I can be honest, I have to be in control of stuff. I like to be. I'm a planner. I like to know when this is going to happen. When am I having these kids? It was just, was probably my first test of like, just let God be.
Trust me.
I had to continue to build my faith, because my faith was, you know, there, but for him to tell me that, in order to hold on to that, I had to keep reminding myself when I would get sad 6 months down the line, when I went to baby showers, everybody's around me. Every month my cycle comes. I'm like, well, God, you said you were going to, you know, so I had to continue to just build my faith, remind myself of what God said. And again, I'm lucky or blessed that I have a husband who was on the same page. He never pressured me. He said, we're going to do whatever, you know, whatever you feel comfortable doing is fine. Of course, I was like, he's going to leave me. He's going to go have kids. Oh, he would always reassure me, like, no, like, if it's not for us, it's not for us. But at least we had that promise from God that it, you know, he would do it. So, yes, now fast forward, we said we're just going to live our lives, enjoy our marriage, because life without kids ain't bad. I just wanted to tell y'all that. I love life without children, and it's also a beautiful life. And so we said we're going to take some trips, we're going to shop, you know, spend our money on us, and just really take time to strengthen our marriage. And so we did that. We moved to Florida 2017. And really, again, we're just not even, there was no trying, like, it was trying.
Right.
Focused on that. I wasn't tracking ovulation. I wasn't doing any of that stuff.
And can we pause there real quick? Because they always tell you that in order for you to get pregnant, you know, stress is not a good thing. However, the process is stressful, because even though God told you that, physically speaking, we know, well, Lord, we still gotta play our part. Like, there's something we got to do to make something happen. And because your desire is there is that tendency to use the tracking apps and, you know, to make sure ovulation is happening. And there's so much stress. So when you get to a point where it sounds like where you all got, where you really just trust and still do your part, but kind of let it go, that's a huge, huge thing. And I'm a witness of that you really do have to get to a point where you let it go, because it can make it really, really rough on a marriage. And I'm thankful that you recognize that and took that time when you got to Florida to realize, like, let's just enjoy marriage, let's enjoy our friendship, let's enjoy ourselves, and, you know, just see what happens. Finally, that's good. So you're doing that. And I remember one of the things that you also told me, which I really love and admire, is that not only did you move to Florida, you kind of bring a new mind frame, a new mindset to say, hey, we're just going to focus on ourselves, you know, keep doing our part, but enjoy it. But you started taking a lot better care of your health. What are some things that you either researched and figured out in regards to your body, PCOS, that kind of got you in a mode to really just start taking care of yourself?
So I wasn't satisfied with just you have this condition.
Yeah.
We about it. There's no cure for it. We don't know how it happens. And just leave it at that. And it's not just about reproduction, because I'm like, even if I had 10 kids right now, I still want to know what this condition is.
Correct.
If it could lead me to diabetes soon.
Yeah.
Started researching. Of course, on the internet, just looking up all kinds of things about PCOS. I came across a page on Instagram of a girl. I believe her handle was like See My Keto or something like that. Mm-hmm. I really don't know how I stumbled across her, other than maybe God led me there.
The Holy Spirit, girl.
But she same story as me. Mm-hmm. I was just so inspired, mainly by like her weight loss. She had lost an incredible amount of weight in a good short period of time. And she was just sharing her story about how, you know, a lot of her symptoms, her PCOS symptoms, had really just like diminished. And she wasn't completely healed or cured of it, but she was just raving about this way of eating that she tried. And I'm looking at her pictures from 6 months ago, and I'm like, whoa, okay, you know, and that's the weight loss, but she also was able to conceive naturally. Yeah. And so that just really kind of sparked me, because I'm not really like I don't get into fat diets and that kind of stuff, overall healthy lifestyle. But I was just curious. I'm like, let me dig into this a little bit more. So what she was doing was the ketogenic diet. And that's controversial. A lot of people don't think it's healthy. It's been advertised not the greatest, because people think you just sit around and you just eat steak and, you know, or a bunch of day and fry, when it's like, that's not it. You can do it. So anyway, I decided that I was going to try it. And so I did a little more modified version, because it's a really strict thing. Yeah. Basically, you got to cut out sugar. Sugar of all kinds. But it's not just sweets, but pasta, bread.
Sugars and fruits?
Yes, exactly. Basically anything except berries. Oh. So it was extreme. There's a lot of like tracking to it, tracking macros. And so I didn't do that extreme version of it, but I did a modified version, which I knew would work for me. Good. I think I tried it for maybe, I was just like, I'm gonna give it a couple months. And I started instantly seeing results. Like I just started, not only was I like losing inches and pounds, but I just felt like I had never felt before with any of these other. I just felt like I had energy. I could sleep better. My mood was better. I didn't have sugar cravings throughout the day. So I'm like, I don't care if anybody is anti-keto, like I'm going to do it.
Yeah. And I wanted to make sure you shared that part of it, because I think that's another thing when it comes to getting diagnosis in your body. Like, you have to be proactive. Yes, doctors tell you one thing, but do your best to do your own research and figure out what it is that you can do to help yourself. Because I think it's a tendency to lean on doctors, especially, if you've had them for a long time, you trust them because they're supposed to be the experts. But I think it's important to realize at the end of the day, nobody's going to care about your body better than you are. So whatever it takes to be able to do that. And obviously, once you did that, you were able to see that weight loss. I think you said you lost around like 50 pounds at that time, and you were able to feel a lot better. And that led to you actually finding out eventually that you were pregnant in, I believe it was June of 2018. Yes. So tell me about finding out that you were pregnant. What was that whole experience like, and how did it come about?
So, like I said, we were not tracking, trying, expecting anything. In addition to the keto diet, like, so I noticed within maybe 6 weeks or so, my cycle was regular for the first time. Like it came, it was not crazy heavy. It didn't last for a long time. It was just a regular, like 5. I also started taking some supplements and vitamins. Nice. But yeah, so the next couple of months, I know my cycle was regular.
Yeah.
Then of course June rolls around, and I was not taking pregnancy tests because I've been there, done that, been like, nope, not taking them. But my cycle was a couple days. No, actually, it was about a week and a half late. Much of it, but I'm really in tune with my body, so I just know when something's weird or off.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's just like, I just don't feel like myself. Yeah. And I kept telling him I feel like myself, and he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I can't explain it. So I'm sitting at my desk at work one day, and my boss has offered to go get me some Zoe's Kitchen for lunch, because that was like my favorite place. Little cauliflower bowls. I'm like, sure. So she brings my lunch back and she sits it on my desk, and I'm like, I wanted to vomit.
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah, but I was just so sick. I'm like, what is that? I mean, the smell. Wow. So maybe I had a stomach bug or something. So I opened it up. I tried to take a bite, had to spit it out. I had to throw the whole thing away. So I'm also an avid water drinker. Like, I love, and so I was trying to drink some of my ice water, and it was tasting like metal.
No.
Like, maybe my water bottle's dirty, and, went and got a cup and got some water, and everything was just tasting weird and smelling weird that day. And I didn't even make it past my lunch break. I sat there and I was like, okay, I'm really nauseous. I'm never nauseous. I looked at my little calendar and I'm like 10 days late.
Girl, you was not paying attention at all.
I'd have been 10 days late, and it was
right.
All of these things are, so I went home on my lunch break, mainly to get another lunch because I couldn't eat that. And when I was there, I'm just like, let me just take a test.
Yeah.
Not thinking I didn't think it was going to be positive. I go take the test, positive. And I'm in shock. I'm in shock. So I take about 5 more.
Wow.
6 tests total, yes. Because there's no way this can be happening. So after number 6, I'm like, okay, I'm probably.
I think you have hypothesized that you probably are.
Brands of the test. I'm like, it's probably accurate. So I call Iran. And at that time, he worked in the call center, and I felt so horrible about doing it. I called him. He's whispering. I'm like, Iran, I need you to get up from your desk. He's like, what? Everything okay? I'm like, get up from your desk. And so he goes out and steps into the hallway, and I told him, like, I'm pregnant.
That is crazy.
It was just dead silence for like 5 minutes, and then and he's like, Ericka, and I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, I have to go back to work now.
Listen, why you do my boy like that? Okay, why you got to do my boy like that?
And
did you go back to work after that? I would have been done for the day.
And I couldn't think of anything. I was just sitting at my desk like, this is
right.
So yeah, that was an amazing moment.
Yeah. So let's kind of go further into your pregnancy. Once you found out you were pregnant, how was your first experience with your pregnancy in the first couple of months? How was everything going in terms of ultrasounds and, the function of the baby and movement and all those different things? What was that like?
So everything was fine. Ultrasounds were fine, my blood work, just the standard blood work. I didn't like testing and stuff, but standard blood work, routine exams were fine. I didn't have any issues physically. Of course, the nausea, I had for the first 5 months, but other than that, everything seemed to be fine.
So when did they realize that there was something that was happening that wasn't fine?
At my anatomy scan, which I don't remember exactly. I'm thinking it was about 20 weeks. I know they do it between 18 and 20.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was sent me for an anatomy scan, and that was actually with the maternal fetal medicine doctor.
Got you.
Because I think they may have put me in the high risk category because I had chronic hypertension. I've been on high blood pressure medication for probably 10 years.
Yeah.
Caution, they just, sent me there. So I got the anatomy scan done, and when they were doing all the measurements, and that's just where they measure everything, like the bones, the skull, their size and everything. It was just a little quiet and, not necessarily as exciting in there. I could kind of tell something was off. So the doctor came in to discuss the results with us. He said that they were a little concerned because the growth had slowed on track, perfectly. And then it was like, okay, the growth, had kind of slowed. And they also noticed that like the shape of her skull, they said it was maybe looking like it could have been like strawberry shape. Other concerns. So there was nothing definite, her heartbeat was still fine and everything. But at that point, they suggested that we do the genetic testing. There was still time to do it, the blood work.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So with that, we decided, let's just go ahead and do it and find out. And we didn't get it done initially because we didn't have any family history of any disability like that. So they even told us, like, this is your first baby. You don't have any sort of history of anything. So you don't have to get it done. And they didn't even us to get it done, but we decided to after they thought there was something wrong.
Yeah. And I mean, that is something that they make optional, especially if at that point you weren't in with, the geriatric, side of things in terms of pregnancy when you're 35 and up. So a lot of times if there is nothing going on both sides, they will make it optional until, there is a reason to do it. So once you got that, and when was it after the genetic testing that you then knew for sure? At what state did you find out, and how many weeks or months were you at that point?
It was only that the test came back quickly. I would say with even less. The doctor called and he told me that the blood work came back and is showing that the baby has trisomy 18.
And explain to people what exactly that means or what that is.
So basically, it's a chromosome abnormality, and it's just that, we all have a certain amount of chromosomes. And for the T, I don't remember how many exactly we're supposed to have, but she had an extra one.
Got you. Which essentially is an abnormal, because I think you're only supposed to have like 2 of each set of chromosomes, something like that. I don't remember how many, but I think you're only supposed to have like 2 of each of how many ever chromosomes we're supposed to have. So essentially she had more than she needed. Yep. So from that point, once they found that out, how did things shift and change in terms of, your doctor's appointments, how you were being treated, and what took place after that diagnosis?
So when he told us that, I'm sure he probably tried to give me as much information as possible, but I blacked out, you know, like I didn't know what that meant. I'd never heard of it. It was just, the conversation was doom and gloom. It wasn't, she has this, but it's okay. It wasn't even like Down syndrome kind of thing where a lot of children have Down syndrome, they still thrive. It was like, this is probably going to happen. I was told that typically babies with trisomy 18 pass away in utero, that they don't even make it to birth. Like a small percentage of them do live. And if they do survive, they have, they're like deformed and basically like vegetables. No quality of life. They're in pain. They, have trouble feeding. A lot of negative things. They were pushing termination. They were very respectful of us, and we continued to remind them, of our desires, our wishes, but they were pushing termination from start to finish. Every conversation was, there's still time to do this. We know we kind of recommend it, and but it's your choice. So appointments, we basically just requested that they continue to monitor the heartbeat, to make sure she has a heartbeat. And our stance on it was, and again, of course, we prayed about it, and the Lord never told us to terminate. I didn't feel comfortable doing that myself. I just felt like if God wanted to take her, he's going to take her. If she wasn't supposed to live, but I wasn't going to make that decision.
Yeah.
So we just asked, to continue to go to the appointments, maybe every other week or every week, to see if she had a heartbeat. We proceeded on as if she was going to be fine, because I'm like, my faith has gotten me here. We tried for 7 years to have a baby.
Yeah.
I'm like, I did this for us. I'm not going to give up now and, lose faith. So we just kept believing, kept praying every day. I would just, I printed out, a whole list of scriptures. I would speak life over her. We ended up finding out that it was a girl. We didn't know it was a girl until 20 weeks, because we were going to keep it as, a surprise and turn. But with that blood work, we found out it was a girl. We decided to name her Eva because that meant life.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
We're going to just continue on as if everything was fine. We had a baby shower, celebrated, because we just didn't know what the outcome was going to be. And, even with all that, I still, because I'm a very real person, and point out that with the person who has the strongest faith, you still have moments. And in between then, I had to fight those moments with God's word. I had to pray a lot. I prayed probably I've ever prayed all the time. But there were those moments that snuck in, and the enemy was like, why are you doing this? You heard what they told you, and I always had those thoughts and those images in my head of her being born, something being wrong, and she's going to die. And I just had to literally make a choice, not even just daily, but sometimes multiple times a day, that I'm going to believe that God's going to heal her or I'm not.
That's so important. And I think not only that, I mean, obviously you didn't know what was going to happen, but again, you had gotten a word how many years before that he said he was going to do this for you. He didn't need your help. He was going to do it. And then now he's done it. So there's still you believing that this is still a part of his word, even though you don't understand why this part of the plan is happening. And I think a lot of times, whether we realize it or not, God is testing us in moments where we don't quite understand. And we may think that the promise of what he believes or what we believe he's giving to us is happening in this moment. And it could be for something else completely different. But ultimately, he still did what he said. You still were able to conceive. You still were pregnant in that time frame, regardless of what was unfolding. So take us to the day when you finally realized that, everything with Eva was coming to an end.
So I think it was maybe like our 24-week appointment. Things just really took a turn. I was trying to make an appointment with the MFM to go, have her heartbeat checked. They wouldn't call me back. Oof. It was just weird. I'm like leaving voicemails like, can I come in? And they just wouldn't call me back. And so then I ended up getting a call from the pediatric palliative care team. I didn't know what. And so me and Iran, they gave us an address. We just go over and we meet with the doctor, and there was no ultrasound. It was not like a doctor's office. They just had a bunch of paperwork, and they were looking at us real serious. And the guy said to me, like, you understand what's going to happen?
Essentially, that's essentially like hospice care for pediatrics. So
yes. And I think at that time it set in like, okay, y'all have sent us to hospice. And so I realized that and it wasn't that we were oblivious or ignorant to what they were telling us. It was just, my faith was still just overriding that.
Yeah.
And I think more so I had to do that for my own sanity too.
Yeah.
So it was of faith. And it was also like, who can walk around with a baby in their body knowing that they're going to, they're not going to survive. And so I had, for my own mental health, I had to just choose to believe everything is okay.
Yeah.
And having those conversations with that doctor, they were just looking at us like, and I had to explain, I said, listen, I'm not ignorant. I'm not some young Black girl who doesn't know what you're saying. I've done more research than you know.
Yeah.
Telling me I know what medicine says, I know what your experience has shown and what the research shows and all that. And I was like, and I'm not ignoring any of this. I'm just telling you what we're choosing to do. What we choose. I told him in that appointment, I said, I choose to believe that God is going to perform a miracle and heal her. And I said, and if he doesn't, and that's it. Respectfully, we're just going to continue on as we have been. And so they were kind of encouraging us, saying, well, if you choose to do that, they were giving us an option to deliver her at like, I don't know, maybe 26 weeks or something, whenever she was going to be able to, I guess, have a fighting chance. Right. They're going to put her. So, we're going home. And at that point, we hadn't shared this with anybody. My sister knew.
Yeah.
And she was like the only one that knew. And at that point, we were like, okay, we might need to start at least telling our parents. Because, if we might be in NICU for months, we got a dog that needs to be taken care of. So we decided to share, that information with our parents. Of course, also for some support and encouragement.
Yeah.
And I just throw something in there for anybody who ever goes through anything like this. Don't do this alone.
Yes. Please don't.
It was not, looking back, I wish we would have just included more people in it. And of course, you have to be careful.
Yeah.
But we needed people on our side. We needed people to pray for us. Like, that was a hard thing to go through for months. One person knowing. So I just wanted to throw that in there. But yeah, so we let our parents know. And of course, they were encouraging us and praying with us and believing God with us. And so we were still able to just go to my regular gynecologist or OBGYN, and they agreed to just do the weekly visits to see if her heart was still beating. So we did that every week up until week 28. And she had a perfect heartbeat, was strong, was fine. So I was encouraged. I'm like, okay, she's still. So we go on a Friday, December 28th. That was a 28-week visit. And so we go and, I tried to find her heartbeat on the Doppler, and we didn't hear anything. And so I'm like, okay, I'm still like, it's all right. And the doctor's not freaking out. He's just saying, I'll send you to the ultrasound room because, maybe it's just hard to pick up. So the ultrasound room, the lady turns the thing on, and she,
searching.
I look, and I see my baby laying there, but I don't, she's just real kind of still.
Yeah.
Like normal. But it was a real quick thing. Like, she turned the screen on, turned it right off, and then, cleaned me up and said, okay, go sit in this room. They'll be with you shortly. Didn't register.
Yeah.
Didn't register with me. Iran may have known, but we were just quiet, just went in the room and waited. So we're waiting. I felt like we were in there forever, waiting for the doctors to come in and talk to us. And I think at some point it was a weird, like, sobering moment because I'm just talking. I'm making jokes. I'm hungry. I'm like, I'm 7 months pregnant.
Yeah.
But we've been in here for 3 hours. And I just remember, like, it was yesterday, like, sitting there and I'm, like, joking and stuff. And Iran's just real quiet. Look on his face. And I just stopped. I looked at him. I said, she wasn't moving, was she? No. And so it hit me. I was like, okay, that's why they whisked us out of here. Since the doctors come in, they're talking to us. We're so sorry, and you understand what happened. You understand. I'm like, I guess I do now.
Yeah,
I do. And so, that was a tough.
It's tough. And it's tough, too, because you were believing for healing in one way, and healing still took place. It just didn't take place in the way that you would have wanted. And I think, I know not everybody that might see this eventually is a believer, but I think that is one of the things that is both hard and also comforting. It's a very weird catch-22 as a believer, is realizing that no matter what the answer is, God still gave an answer. And he still did what he said he was going to do, even if it doesn't look the way that we want it to, and even if it hurts in, like, the worst ways possible. So just to kind of go a little further, and for everyone that just joined, because we just been talking, thank you all for being here and continuing to listen. Obviously, like I mentioned before, because we are talking about both her PCOS story, which for those that just joined, we kind of already went through that, and also her pregnancy loss story, and we're kind of in the tail ends of that. This is probably a little bit of a longer live than I've done in the past, but her story is just such a dynamic one, so I want to make sure to give it some time. So thank you all that are continuing to hang in there with us. We appreciate it. So in terms of after that visit, they essentially tell you that you still have to deliver her. What was that process like, and how do you prepare yourself for something like that?
You can't. You
Yeah.
that, of course, it is devastating to find out that your baby has passed away.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, okay, surely I'm going to the hospital. They're going to do a C-section, take her out. They're going to knock me out. And they're telling me, you have to go in and deliver. I'm like, deliver what? Like, deliver? Deliver? And they're like, yes, like go through like labor. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I was probably more just tore up about that part. They also gave me the option. They said, you can just go home and see if, things will take place. Your body will go into labor naturally. But of course, there's a risk there because you don't want to walk around with a deceased baby in your body. I mean, that's deadly for you.
Correct. You can be septic. And at 28 weeks, she's a good size. Who wants to do that by themselves at home?
Right.
That's not even, to me, that's not even a realistic option unless your spouse is a doctor.
Yeah, that was not an option for us. I'm like, it's over. The Lord ended it. It's over. There's nothing we can do about it. I'm like, I want this child out immediately, so I can just move on and heal and recover.
Yeah.
So I was able to actually get in the very next morning. And so
next morning, that's crazy.
And so there was no time, no really process or grieve. Because I'm going home, I'm like crying, and I'm like, okay, you gotta pack your bag, you gotta shave, whatever. You gotta figure out who's gonna watch the dog. I didn't know if I was gonna be in there for a week. I just didn't know what was gonna happen. So I really didn't have time to sit in that enough. Yeah. And I think good thing for me because I don't know where my mind would have gone.
Yeah.
So again, yes, we spent the rest of the evening just crying and whatever, holding and, just trying to make sense of it. But I was just like, okay, I have to prepare myself mentally for going into this hospital tomorrow. And this is my first time. I've never given birth. I don't know what this is going to be like.
Yeah.
I feel like nothing. So they called the next morning, said we had, they had a bed for me. So I went in maybe like 10 in the morning on that Saturday. My family, sister flew in early in the morning. My family was there with us. Winnie Palmer, I mean, the whole staff treated us just so well. It was I hated that we were there for that.
Yeah.
But the experience itself, just the way that they handled us was just, it was such a blessing. So yeah, they, of course, in and out the whole time, just telling us what's going to happen, trying to prepare us, and this is what happens afterwards. People just in and out of the room. The pediatric palliative care team coming in, checking on me. There's grief counselors coming in, giving triplets and funeral homes where you're going to have, at that point, she's 7 months, or I was 7 months along, and they're like, well, you have to either decide to, do burial or cremation. If you want to have a funeral for her. And I'm thinking, like, what in the heck? Like, I just want to get.
Can we pause right there? So you find out that your baby is no longer alive. The next day, you have to deliver her. You already know that you're delivering a child that's no longer alive. On top of that, then you have to plan a funeral for her all within the same span. And while I think it may be well known, I don't think people realize, and I can't remember if it's after 20 weeks, I can't remember the time frame, but even if your child passes away after a certain point, you have to legally have a funeral. You have to have a name. You have to get, death certificates. You have to go through that process. So I just wanted to pause on that because even though I know we're kind of trying to get through your story, I just want people to kind of just understand how detrimental this really, really is, because that's a lot for someone to endure in a very quick span of time.
Definitely.
So tell me, how did you get to the point then of your actual delivery? What did they do to basically help you deliver? And what was that experience like?
So they gave me a drug that was basically like an abortion pill. Mm-hmm. I cannot remember the name of it. I know we've got a couple nurses, Brittany on here, may be able to drop it in here, but I basically had to take this pill. It was every couple of hours for maybe like 3 or 4 hours. And it was just a pill that I had to like put in my cheek and let it dissolve. And then I think they like upped the dosage. They basically just said this could take 24 hours, 48 hours, 2 hours. We don't know, but just take this. They did offer me some painkillers, an option to have some different kind of medication, so I didn't have to.
I think someone put misoprostol.
Possible.
Which I think, well, I don't know if it's the same thing. Huh?
Right?
That's what that's what I had to take. So that is, which essentially makes you have contractions. It starts the birthing process. But I want to say you might have taken something a little bit different.
Yeah, I don't know, but Brittany, I see on here, she said that too, and
that's what I remember. So it might have been.
That's probably it. Yeah. So I took that, and it was not.
Yeah. It wrecks your body. Like you feel like. I just remember when it happened for me, I almost felt like the pain and the bleeding were immediate. Like I wanted to be doing anything else but living at the time that they put that medication. So I can only imagine now, not only do you have that medication, but you have to perform.
Yes.
How long did it take for it to kind of start the process, and how long was delivery for you?
I want to say started me on that in the afternoon, maybe like 1. And then it was not until like maybe 10 or 11 p.m. that I even really started to feel anything.
Got you.
So I did have, started having contractions and stuff. Of course, nobody's in there timing it and stuff like they do, live birth.
Yeah.
But it was extremely painful cramps, contractions, and I was utilizing that little butt for the pain.
Yeah.
My body didn't react to that well, so I was really like violently ill. They had to give me some of that, to control the vomiting and stuff. But I tried to get a little bit of some sort of nap or something. So again, I didn't know what was ahead. But thankfully, the process for me went very quickly. I didn't have any complications, anything. I just remember hitting that nurse's button. I'm like, something's coming out. I got to push.
Yeah.
And I pushed, I don't know how many times. It wasn't long at all.
Yeah.
And of course, it didn't feel like now having a baby.
Right. It's completely different.
Completely different, but it was still painful.
Yeah.
I think the mental part of it is still just like, a lot. So, but yeah, pretty quick delivery. They, of course, immediately took her away. They came back in, maybe, I was in and out of sleep because I was exhausted. But I remember them coming back in and asking, would you like to see her? Would you like to hold her? And initially, they told us that would be an option.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how I felt about it.
Yeah.
Again, this was the day before. They told me it was an option, and I was still trying to just be done with it. I didn't know what that was going to do to me. But immediately, it's like when you give birth, I don't care if you give birth and your child is not alive or, how far along you are. It's just something as a mother. Right. I'm like, yes, I want to hold her.
I've even heard of that happening with people who decide to do adoptions. Even though they know they're not going to keep the baby, they still have that desire because, again, you performed. This still came out of you regardless.
Yeah, I'm like, something in me. I'm like, I just have to see her. I just have to see her. And so I'm glad I chose that. Of course, a couple hours later, they cleaned her up, brought her back in, and I was glad that I got to spend time with her. It was not a long time, maybe a couple of hours. Even my family, they gave them, I called them.
I'm so glad you mentioned that.
And I was surprised because it's weird. Yeah. It's like you're conflicted because you're excited. It's like normally you have a baby and you're like, oh, parents and your friends to come by and visit. And it's like, this is weird. I don't know if other people are weirded out by this. So I just gave them the option. I'm like, if you want to hold her, if you want to see her, and they're like, my parents said, absolutely.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, it was your parents and then also your brother and your sister, right? So your entire family was able to be there and to support you in that time frame. But I think that's the thing people have to remember too is, which I think most people know, when you're pregnant and people know, everyone's excited. So even though you feel like it's just your loss, it's everybody's loss still, because they also were looking forward to, they're talking about their niece and their, their grandbaby. So I think it's so special that you got to the point where you were willing to tell them, but also allow them to be a part of this process, and that they were open to it and wanted to grieve in that moment too. That's very, very special.
Yeah, that definitely helped. It just made, I appreciated that it also didn't take away from the fact that she was a person.
Yeah.
People just throw that away as, well, she wasn't alive. You didn't know her. And just because your child doesn't, isn't born breathing or born alive, or you don't get to take them home and they get to know their personality, it's still like she was a human being. She was still a person.
Correct.
She was, like you said, my parents, that was their granddaughter.
Yeah.
And her niece, my brother, his first niece. So I'm glad that, and I wouldn't have been offended if they said no, because I'm not sure if I would, have done it for someone else to do that. But I appreciated that they gave us the option to do that. So this helped me not feel so alone in that experience, because we had gone through all of those months with this, secret basically. And then to hear it is, this is her. And they were just, they loved her, and they were taking pictures, with this, but it was weird. Like,
of course.
Precious, but it's weird because it's like your emotions are all over the place. I was excited and I was proud of my daughter, but I'm like,
I don't get to go. She doesn't get to come home with me.
Oh, like this is not really what it feels like.
Ooh, yeah.
It was.
And I see some people in the comments, they're like, your testimony has so many layers, and it's true. It is so many things. It's definitely so many things. And I kind of want to get to the beautiful part of your story. I know that, you did end up having to choose, or you chose cremation with Eva. And I think that's the thing that people, I want to reiterate, is that the fact that you said she's a person. And I think that's the one thing that people have to realize, is a lot of times when you hear about miscarriages or pregnancy loss, a lot of times, because that people don't see that physical child anymore, they forget, like, there was still a process. It still mattered to the people that it mattered to. And that's why I wanted to be sure that I share these stories like yours, because you don't want to forget. Like, Eva will always be Eva. There's not going to be another Eva Watson, period. And that is what makes it important for people to know, that a lot of times people gloss over miscarriages and pregnancy loss, but for that family, for that person, and I mean, I didn't even go as long as you did. 8 weeks, my whole experience was over, but I still felt it so deeply. So I can't imagine going through a longer process of that. So I just want to make sure people understand, like, yes, these babies are still babies. They're just not here with us. And, I'm grateful that Eva is smiling down, and I know that you will get an opportunity to meet her again. But in the midst of all that, God decided to go ahead and keep his promise still. And you eventually got pregnant again. And if I'm not mistaken, was it like almost a year to the date you lost Eva or something like that? Tell us about that.
So I gave birth to her on like 3:30 something in the morning on December 30th of 2018. And so of course the following, 2019, half of it was a blur. I was just trying to and survive and, just kind of get back into the swing of things. But in a weird way, that experience made me want motherhood more.
Of course. Yep.
A lot of times I think, some people think you would kind of be scared off, and I wasn't. It was like, it was just strange, because it just made my faith, like, I'm like, okay, no, because God told me this, and I know it ain't supposed to end like this. So number one, I know we're going to have another baby. I don't know when, but I know it has to happen. Good. I just had this like longing, like this. I had this, I got to a certain point, and they didn't, that promise or that, wasn't fulfilled. I just had this mama heart that was just huge. Like, I got to have my baby. Yeah. Whole year, I'm just trying to, we're encouraging ourselves and just trying to remind ourselves, what God said. And he sent so many people, like random people, to just encourage us throughout the entire year. I mean, not just sending people, but, I was just encouraged myself and my prayer time. He would just remind me, like, I said it. And he would say, you're going to have children and whatever. So I held on to that. We finally got back into some kind of normalcy in life. And it was around holiday season. Holiday season is always kind of rough. It's
Correct.
just frustrating when you have a loss in your I was just thinking about, like, it's Christmas time. I don't have my baby here. I also, we can't gloss over this, Shani. I was pregnant within a group of women.
Yes. That part. Yeah.
In the heart. I watched friends give birth. I watched a friend who gave birth.
Literally it was like 4 or 5, and we're talking about women that we all go to church with. It was like, it almost seemed like something was in the water. It was like 4 or 5 you all pregnant all at the same time with like due dates that were like in tandem to each other.
Yes. And so, of course, I'm overjoyed. We're all excited for each other, but that is, those triggers when you're trying to heal and then someone gives birth the date.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, and then Mother's Day rolls around and people, like, I got to be here because I'm always going to celebrate other people. I'm not a and it's not even about jealousy. I'm like, this just hurts.
Correct.
Like,
you're human.
Here. And so, again, we're going through the year and I'm, working through all of that, all of the triggers, but still believe in God.
Yeah.
And Christmas time came and my family was, my sister came in town, my family's there. And, we're just out at some carnival having fun, just kind of trying to, not focus on the sad. Kind of sad thinking about it too. But I remember my sister was going home maybe like the day after Christmas or a couple days after Christmas. And it just hit me like, this year is almost up and I don't have a child. Yeah. And I knew he was going to come through on his promise.
Yeah.
I remember sitting in the living room talking to her and I was just crying. I'm telling her, like, all of my disappointment and everything. And she prayed for me. And she's like, I can imagine how you feel. And, I'm sorry. And, but she was just encouraging me.
Yeah. Sisters are the best, by the way. Just side note, sisters are the best. Okay, keep going. They really are.
So I'm driving to work. Of course, the December 30th rolls around, which would be 1 year since, we lost her. And 1 year since we lost her, also technically her birthday.
Wow.
The night before, Iran, we're kind of like, what do we want to do to celebrate her? We don't want to forget about her completely. Yeah. But I don't know if I feel like having like a birthday party.
Yeah.
It's not a joyous occasion for us. Everybody celebrates or, commemorates people differently, but that just wasn't how we felt about it. And so I think we were both just kind of like, we don't want to be sad. Like, we're tired, been sad all year. I'm tired of it. And so I'm driving to work on December 30th in the morning. And I remember just like feeling this sadness. And I was just like, Lord, before I went into work, I said, I don't want to be sad today. I'm tired. I know it's part of grief. I'm walking through this journey in a healthy way, but I'm tired of being sad. And I just want happiness. And I specifically asked God for overwhelming joy to replace that. So never, ever, ever in a million years expected this, but I go to work. I carry on again. We were not like tracking and trying and all that kind of, but started to feel that same nausea again. I'm like,
we praise God for the nausea this time.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling a little weird again. It was just like revving up throughout the day. The whole water thing was happening again. And so, I'm just kind of rushing. I did make it through my entire work day this time. Even lunch, but I made it my work day. I get off work and I was going to stop at like Walgreens or something and just I ran a card and, some little goodies, just trying to cheer him up. Cause I know he was really down. And I was just like, you know what? Buy a pregnancy test. Why? Because that could have ended differently. Could have made
You
know what? I'm gonna try. So go home, take the test, positive. And I think although the first time I found out I was pregnant, it was just a magical experience. I think this time was even more special because it was literally the day that one of the worst days of my life, just a year before. And the fact that I specifically asked God for overwhelming joy, I'm like, what could be more joyous than this?
Correct.
And so,
listen, God keeps every promise that he says he's going to give you. And the one thing I do know about God is he be like in a story. Like he don't do nothing regular. Like you can't just, he wants you to be able to say a year to the date. You know, he loves just like a dope story with a dope ending. And as much as you may have had to wait, you know, as long as you did, it makes your story like that much greater. The fact that you also change your mindset, like it should have been a day of sadness and you chose joy. And I think that's a lot of things, is that people always look for happiness. I want to be happy. What's going to make me happy? When you're a believer, you have to choose joy even when it seems like it shouldn't be an option. Mm-hmm. And I think there was a reward for you in that. I think God realized, like, my daughter's asking me for something that she probably shouldn't even ask me for. Like, she could stay in her feelings. It's okay if she decided to do that. Yeah. But she's asking me to give her joy. And not only am I going to do that for her, but like, I'm going to like give her a testimony that is like out of this world. I would leap out of camera if I could, even though I've heard the story a million times, but I need to stay in frame. So I'm going to sit where I'm at. But I think that's when you told me, I remember the first time you told me that it was a year to the date, and it instantly clicked. It's just like, yo, like, who does that? Like, God does that. That is so dope to me. So now Zara is 2 or 3?
2.5.
2.5. So now Zara is 2.5. And she's as cute and cuddly and just the sweetest little thing, and so smart, like full on sentences, so smart. Tell me, from Zara, you know, obviously you are full-fledged into motherhood, but there's more to your story after Zara. Tell us a little bit more of some of the things that have taken place since you've had Zara and kind of what the future holds for you.
So after having Zara, she's just everything that I could have ever wanted in a daughter or a child in general. We never had gender preference. I've never been like, I need to have a son or a daughter or anything. I think to have just been so grateful, you know, going through such a journey and being told that you'll never have children unless you think God, you know, blessing you with children or, you know, a child naturally and multiple pregnancies at that. I've just been content with her. And being married, sometimes your spouse isn't on the same page as you. Well, you know, their desires may be a little different. So it wasn't that I didn't want more children, but also I don't really want to go through all of that stuff again, and maybe even risking, you know, because there is a risk once you've gone through that, you know, it's a risk.
Correct.
So mentally and mentally and physically. But I would say mid 2022 last year, you know, we started having conversations about it. Cause I know Iran really wanted another child. Yeah. Just, you know, we just started talking about it, and I was just kind of like, I'm cool, you know, I love it. Life is good.
Right.
I was like, of course, if it's the Lord's will, I would just say that, like, if it's the Lord's will.
Right.
And he would just kind of press it more. And I'm also like, I know that my husband can't have a baby without me unless he goes. And when we first got married, we talked about having 3 and 4 kids. And 10 years go by, you like, and so because I was open to it, I just started asking God, like, help me to not just be open to it, but have a desire. A lot of it too was just because I had a really rough, like, postpartum. And so just, you know, a lot of that anxiety and fear coming back up. But again, we just started to pray about it together. And I was like, Lord, if it's your will, you know, let us have another child. I also was revisiting some of the notes that I had, that God had spoken, you know, to me in 2019, and everything, children. You want children. I'm like, okay, well, maybe Eva and Zara were the children. So fast forward to fall of, like, I found out I was pregnant. mid-October, emotions again, all of this stuff starts coming back up. Oh Lord, this could be risky. And, I'm 37 now, just a lot of, concerns and things. But, I was like, I said, if it's the Lord's will, it's the Lord's will.
Right.
And I'm fine. We were over the moon, ecstatic, started making those plans. And unfortunately I had a miscarriage.
Yeah.
About 2 weeks later. So I was about 8 or 9 weeks. Thankfully there was no kind of, I don't want to say damage, but damage.
Right.
They basically just said that there was a pregnancy taking place in my body, but it wasn't in my uterus.
Gotcha.
So I didn't have to go through any procedures or anything. It kind of, cleared up on everything. Yeah. So that wasn't, it was, of course, it's always tough to lose a child.
Right.
Especially if you've already been through that experience. So it was a little triggering, but I just kept reminding myself, like, okay, well, again, number one, if it's in God's will, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I already knew that just because you have one loss doesn't mean that you can't have a healthy and successful pregnancy.
Correct.
The doctors also told me, like, once your body's in pregnant mode, it's easy to get pregnant again.
Right.
So we just, healed from that. And December rolls around, January, something like that. Oh, no, January. No kind of nausea, no kind of nothing. But I really can't tell you. People always say, what makes you take these tests? I'm like, I don't know. But we were just watching TV late one night. It's like January 5th, January 6th, something like that. And get ready to go to bed. And I go to use the restroom. And I was like, I think I have a test. I didn't say nothing to him. Yes, and I think I checked and I was maybe like a week late. It wasn't anything.
Right.
So I took a pregnancy test and I was pregnant.
And not only were you pregnant, but you are currently pregnant.
I am currently 5 months.
Woo! He did it again, sis.
4 times. And
my God. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your entire story with us. But I'm thankful because even though this is a difficult testimony to go through, it literally had ups and downs, but I'm grateful because it ends on a high note. And there's so many people in there that are like, what? Because I know for some of you that know Ericka personally, if you haven't seen her or she hasn't had a chance to share it, you may not know. But I'm grateful because not only has he done it again, but I believe that he's just built up such a resilience in you and such a strength in you. And I really believe without a shadow of a doubt that God is going to allow your pregnancy to move forward as healthily and as beautiful as it's been. But I'm thankful because even in your lowest moments, you were willing to share your story with people like me who hadn't gone through anything yet, didn't know that they were on the verge of going through something. And then just like you saw an IG Live that clicked with you and resonated with you to, kind of allow you to find out what's going on, you're now willing to do an IG Live to share your story that someone watching now or who may be watching in the future will be able to see it and realize, like, okay, if he did it for her 4 times, regardless of what those outcomes might have been, he can do it for me. And I'm just so grateful that you took the time to share with me. I know this may be the first public time, but I know it's not the last. We've talked about this. There's so much more that God has in store for you in sharing your story. And I believe you're just going to help so many women in general. You have one of the most caring hearts. You are just so open. You're so encouraging. When she tells you she's going to pray for you, like, she going to pray for real. Like, it's not something that she just does. I've been a recipient of these prayers. So I'm just so excited for you because I believe it's just going to continue to go up. And I can't wait for, the announcements when this baby is finally here. But I'm just so very grateful that you took the time to share. And is there anything that you just want to leave people who have been watching with? In just any word, it doesn't matter, it doesn't even have to be tied to your story, but if there's something that is just on your heart that you just want to share before we end our lives.
Sure. Of course, first of all, with the PCOS, I know that there's not a lot of information about it. If you feel like your doctor is just pushing medication and you don't want to go that route, research. There are vitamins and supplements that can help, you know, diet changes, lifestyle changes. And that may not be the case for everybody, but don't just let them tell you that and then, you know, just leave it at that.
Correct.
I'm here to help, you know, if people have questions. I am not a medical professional. Anybody under the diet, but I can tell you what I took and what worked for me.
Yeah.
I'll point you to some resources that have been helpful for me. And then as far as just don't give up. If you have a desire, if it's not just you having a desire, but if God put a desire in you to have children,
correct.
I can't tell you what that's going to look like. It could be adoption. It could be through IVF. It could be naturally, you know, but don't give up. Like literally just keep having faith.
Yeah.
Ask God what he has to say about it. And I think that Shani, you and I talked about that, that helped. I wasn't just going off of what I wanted because I was bad. Because sometimes we want something so bad and it's just not for us.
Correct.
But just ask God, like, no matter what your prayer life is, like, just, Lord, what do you have to say about this? Is it in your will for me to have children?
Yeah.
Is it in your will? What does it look like? Every step of the way, consult God. Don't get weary because it's been 7 years. It was 7 years for us because it's been too long. And because you think, oh, I'm getting old. My eggs are getting, like, all of that stuff. Just consult God. Ask him for direction. Ask him, like, is this okay? Is this what you want us to do?
Yeah.
So it will do a lot of stress and money and heartbreak and all of that. So I just hope that this encourages somebody, you know, to just know that even if you have a loss, you can still have a successful pregnancy and you may have another loss.
Correct.
In between, or maybe none at all. I pray you all don't have to go through anything that Shani and I have had to go through. But if you find yourself in the thick of infertility, just don't give up hope.
Correct.
That's I want to leave everybody with.
Thank you, Ericka. Give them your Instagram so that if people want to follow you, and if there is someone who maybe is watching that feels led to DM you, which I suggest, like I said, she is a wealth of just encouragement and a wealth of knowledge. She may not be a doctor, but she can put you up on some things. So let them know what your Instagram is if they want to follow.
It is E_natural85.
Yes. So please follow if you're not already following her. And for those of you that may have come on for Ericka because you did not know me, again, my name is Shani. My Instagram is ShaniSpeaksNow. And I will actually be uploading this in a week. So by this weekend, I will upload this and have it on YouTube. I'll also kind of chop it up a little bit because I know we had a couple minutes in the front where we were trying to connect, and it will be available. So if you believe there's someone you know that will benefit from her story, and that it will be, thank you, Sanika, for putting her IG in the comments. If you believe that it's something that will benefit someone, please go on YouTube. My YouTube channel is ShaniSpeaksNow, and I'll actually share it to my feed right now. So it'll be here on Instagram. But I know people are willing to watch videos longer on YouTube than Instagram, so I don't know. But it is what it is. But it'll be up on my YouTube. Please share her story so that people can get the information and the help that they need. People are thanking you, Ericka. They are letting you know they love you. They appreciate your story, your testimony. Thank you again, sis, for sharing. You already know I love you, and we will talk again soon. Yes. And also, please thank Iran for me for being open to you sharing your story, because I think that's one thing is for those of us that are married that go through these issues, we're not doing it alone. So our husbands have to be open and willing, because it's not just our story, it's also their story. It's something that also reflects on them and reflects on their lives, and they're going through their own emotions, even if it's not ours. So please give my brother my love. Tell him thank you so much for, one, having you for an hour and a half where he might be watching Zara somewhere, and two, allowing you to just share your story in such fullness. I appreciate him too. So please give him my love.
Absolutely. Thank you again for the opportunity, Shani. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Yes, for sure. All right, everybody. I love you all. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Eat something good for me, because I am not cooking on tonight. I got to get on a plane real quick. But I love you guys. Thank you, everyone, for just coming in. And we will have our next conversation on May 7th. It will actually be my fibroid plus, because this person had multiple things with the reproductive system, and film story. She became a reproductive health specialist, or not specialist, advocate, and created a film called Red Alert about it. It's one of the first people I'll talk to that I do not know personally, but she has an amazing story, an amazing documentary that she's looking to put out. So that will be our next story on May 7th. So lock that date in, and I will definitely pub it for you all too. But I love you all. Ericka, I love you, sis. We will talk, and you all enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
All right.
Bye.
Ericka, thank you so much for sharing your dynamic story with us. Sis, we cannot wait to see how your story unfolds. And if you'd like to share your story live, remember you can email me directly at hi@ShaniSpeaksNow.com or DM me directly on Instagram. Didn't get a chance to watch? Well, you can listen wherever you listen to podcasts on Shani Speaks Now, the podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And remember, always keep the faith and let the Lord fight your battles.